And welcome to the Owen Sound City Council meeting for April 28th. It's great to see so many people out to visit us in person tonight, and such a beautiful evening it is. We may really have turned the corner from that other season that we have endured for far too long. So we have completed our in-camera meeting for this evening, and we're now in our regular council meeting. I will ask everyone to please join in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Are there any additional items for tonight's council meeting? Councillor Purdon.
So I'd just like to make an announcement about precarious workshops.
Okay. Councillor Body.
I'd like to bring attention to the art banner project in Owen Sound.
Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Worship. Just to mention the upcoming Sports Hall of Fame evening.
Thank you. Councillor Lemon.
Yes, Your Worship, I'd like to address a joint meeting between operations and accessibility.
Okay. Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, and I'd just like to talk about the Healthy Communities Conference coming up.
Anyone else? I have one item with regards to litter. Litter cleanup. It's a better story. Litter cleanup. Okay, any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Councillor Chamberlain.
With 12B4.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. Confirmation of the minutes, please, from April 14th.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Twaddle, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on April 14th, 2014, as printed, be adopted.
All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. A resolution moving council in committee of the whole, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Twaddle, that the City Council now go into committee of the whole to consider public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We're now in committee of the whole. And we do not have any public meetings scheduled for this evening, but we do have deputations. And our first deputation, I think we can say, is in part responsible for bringing us maybe some of this nice warm weather. And I will invite Shirley Rutherford to the podium, please. Shirley and her group have traveled for the 40th year to St. Anne's Parish in Ocho Rios, Jamaica. And welcome back.
Thank you.
Our sister city.
Great, thank you.
It's good to see you here.
Good to be back. Mind you, it was much warmer down there. Mayor Haswell, councilors, staff, and guests, we've been invited to give you a short report on our trip, and I won't bore you too much long. It was 40 years this year, and we had a letter from the mayor in Jamaica wanting to know if we would be interested in getting a group together to come down. So Liz McConnell and June Morrison, Anne Murray, her husband, and myself decided that we'd put things together, and we got a group of 45 people to go. So it worked out pretty good. I gave you a wee agenda of what they had given us. I had emailed them saying, this is a holiday and we don't want to be too busy. But anyway, they kept us busy and they rolled out the red carpet for us. On the Monday, we went to the church on the Sunday, but then Monday we went to Lawrence Park where we had the flag raising and speeches. So the Owen Sound flag is flying in Lawrence Park down there. Bob Gallen Jr. presented the letter from Mayor Haswell. Liz McConnell presented the letter from Larry Miller, and I presented the letter from Bill Walker. So they were all pleased, and it was going to be in the city hall down there. We were taken to a beach called Laughing Waters, which was just beautiful, and they served a lovely lunch. I had a young police officer. They had lots of security for us. I had a young police officer come up to me, and he asked me what my name was, and I told him, and he said, "How do you spell it?" So I spelled it for him, and he said, "Isn't that funny? That's exactly what my name is." I said, "You gotta be kidding." And he said, No, my name's Rutherford. And he was, had his training in England. His parents lived in England, and he went to university there, and then he went to police college, and now he's a policeman in St. Anne's Bay. So it was quite interesting. We went to, we couldn't get to the second school. They had a field day that day, so we couldn't go there, but we went to the first one. And we got off the bus, and somebody made a mistake of handing a pencil to one of the children, and boom. We had, I don't know how many kids surround the bus and put the little hands up wanting pencils or pins or whatever. So we gave them out pins, and they were just thrilled. Then we went from there to the hospital, and we had a little meeting with the head doctor and some nurses there, and we presented them with, actually we had 12 duffel bags full of things for the schools and the hospital, just donations from people in Owen Sound that had given us things. So we presented that to them, and then we went to the clinic and presented some bags there at the clinic too, just Band-Aids and, you know, things that they would normally use there. I'm trying to keep it short because I know you have work to do. The next place we went to, they took us to, was Roaring River Great House, and it was a museum up on the hill. And when you stood up there, you looked down towards the sea, and that's where Christopher Columbus came in and landed. So they're going to sort of get the land going and build right from this hill right down to the water. And I said, the next time we come, we'll probably see a replica of the ship from Christopher Columbus. And the man said, "You might be right, ma'am." And other than that, Mr. and Mrs. Morrison and myself were made honorary citizens of St. Anne's Bay.
That's great.
So, and also...
Do you have a place there now?
Pardon?
Do you have a place there now?
I'm trying.
You take quite a few visitors?
I made a little note. They have a mayor, a deputy mayor, and 14 councillors. And I said, "Oh my, that seems like a lot. We don't have that many." And the mayor said, "Well, they do come from all the different parishes around, and they come in and they all gather at the city hall there." Now, Murray, would you like to add a little bit? You don't want to say a few words? Okay. You want to say anything, Liz? No? Okay. Penny? No? Oh, they're all mum today.
You're on.
We had a beautiful hotel, and now the Jamaicans, we had to, if we wanted some of the city council or the mayor or whatever to come to the hotel, we had to go away down to a little gate down at the front and give the word there that they were allowed to come in and see us. But it didn't happen because we were with them most of the time anyway. They picked us up. It was just a wonderful holiday, and they treated us royally. And I don't know where all the money came from because there was a lot of food and a lot of buses driving us around, and they got free passes for anyone that wanted to go to see like Mystic Mountain or the caves, or which I thought was wonderful because, you know, they're expensive. Anyway, it was a wonderful trip, and they also sent a book with me to make a presentation to Mayor. So would you please like me to do that now?
I'd love to.
Okay.
Yes. Next time, maybe we could do it in Ocho Rios or St. Anne's Parish.
That would be
Yeah.
wonderful.
Note, that would be all my own expense. No public money was used for any of this, to be clear.
To be clear,
Oh, isn't this beautiful?
this is, was
Nice.
presented to me by the mayor, and he asked me to make a presentation to you. It's a beautiful book,
It's gorgeous.
and they also had these made up with the 40th
Oh, isn't that neat?
anniversary.
Celebrating
That's
40
near, yeah.
years.
That's Desmond right there, your mayor.
That's the mayor. He was a character.
Celebrating 40 years of twinning, Owen Sound and St. Anne's Bay.
Now, this
And-
is where they were giving us, oh, just missed it. That's where they were giving us the honorary citizenship there, too.
You know, I thank
Okay,
you so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you on behalf of the city.
Thank you.
And for keeping this alive for 40 years. It is incredible.
Yeah.
And what a great
Yes.
group it was. I had the
Oh,
good
we had-
fortune of saying goodbye and wishing everyone a bon voyage the morning that they left.
That's right.
And I'll tell you, it was a very, very good crew, and looked like they were going to be ready for a lot of fun.
We were.
So
We
thank you
did.
so
We had a
much,
great
Shirley.
time.
Thank you.
You're very
Thanks.
welcome.
Thanks.
Thanks. I think we can just let you get down to business now.
You can leave or you can stay all night. That's okay, you can do that too. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You know, twinning is something that back, 20, 30, 40 years ago, there wasn't internet, there wasn't Facebook and so on, and telephone connections even were pretty difficult. So you can see that 40 years ago, the importance of doing the cultural exchanges and what can be learned by doing that. I think it's wonderful that this group has managed to keep this going every single year for the last 40 years. So thank you to Shirley Rutherford and all of her friends for doing so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night. We have our warden here this evening, and I'll welcome Warden Brian Milne and CAO Lance Thurston, the County of Grey, and this is a 2014 visit. And Warden, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council and senior staff. It's a pleasure to be here. Lance and I have no gifts to bring tonight, books or otherwise. And I'm just thinking, you were talking about the 40 years they've kept the thing going to Ocho Rios. I'm thinking, why is that such a hardship? Like, why wouldn't you want to do that? So Lance is just handing out some, I think it's the corporate operating plan that the county has developed over time and we're working on. I'm not going to speak about any specific issue unless there are issues that you want to talk about. We're just thrilled to be here. Thank you for the invitation. So you can see there's a number of things that we are working on and have worked on. If there's anything in particular that you'd like to chat about, or Lance, if you want to add anything before we...
I know there is one, there's one thing that council recently has certainly been interested in learning more about, and that is the initiatives around countywide library. And that might be something that you want to just touch on tonight. I know that council, I'm pretty certain, has all received a copy of the report that the county completed and the librarians together completed, and the recommendations on that. But this might be a good opportunity just to speak to that a little in terms of the direction that the county was looking at and where it ended up at the end of the day. But I also, before you start into that, I do want to say thank you so much on behalf of council for the Warden's Forum in Drumore last Thursday evening, and the speakers that you brought in were excellent. They were topical, they were thought-provoking, they were somewhat aggravating, but they did all of the right things in terms of sparking a lot of discussion, a lot of ideas. So one speaker was on the Haldeman Tract, the Six Nations land claim, as well as the other speaker was speaking to the importance and innovation that can be found in senior level of government, being county government. So really appreciated that extra effort.
Well, thank you for that. And it was a little different take on the Warden's Forum than we've done in the past, and I was hopeful it was going to work out well, and I've had a lot of good comments, and Lance did a lot of, and Penny did a lot of the organizing, but no, it turned out really well. I'm quite pleased the way it went. And so Lance did most of the work on the library
Yes.
thing. I can tell you where it ended up,
Sure.
but Lance will maybe tell you how we got to where it ended up. So
Thank you.
Oh, you can run.
yeah, no, I'll stay here. I'll stay here. I got your back, buddy.
So in terms of the library, that was the first service that we put through our collaborative decision-making framework that County Council had approved. And that's a framework by which we try to bring some rigor and some consistency to how we review services if we're looking at changing services or different municipalities want to go together and look at something. So we looked at the libraries, we put it through the first step of that process, which was to kick the tires on the idea and see whether County Council wanted to proceed further. And what I found through my review was that there was not a lot of energy or interest at the local level to proceed with a county-wide review. And in honesty, I did not talk to the users of the system. This was more just a governance review. But the boards were telling me they weren't interested. County council, or sorry, municipal councils weren't expressing a lot of interest. In fact, two had said, "Don't even darken our doorway." So I'm really pleased to see and hear what's now burbling within the county. A number of municipalities and their local library boards are talking about maybe we should be taking it to the next step and having a look at it. So that is encouraging. And that's where it should be from my perspective as the county CAO. The county isn't in the game at this point. We could certainly get involved at some point, but it needs that local drive and that local energy to address it. So County Council has said if there's a role for the county in the future, it could be something like financial contribution, it could be facilitation, but it's not necessarily direct delivery of the service. So that's where it's at right now.
Whenever you say financial contribution, you really get our attention. You
I
say,
know,
I want to be clear, that's not what you think he said. I know what he said, but that's not what he meant to say. No, we don't have a check or anything like that. And we're not
that's
gonna start-
yet another meeting. I know.
Yeah, maybe several more.
Councillor Wright and then Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I just, it might be of use to us if you brought us up to date on where broadband is right now.
Okay. Sure, absolutely delighted to. There's a number of broadband files that we're juggling at the county. And it is on my list here to talk to you about. So, we have two projects we're involved in. The first one is through the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, and that's where we're looking at the potential development of a regional fiber optic broadband network throughout southwestern Ontario. The feasibility study has been completed. The Wardens have endorsed it in principle to go to the next stage, which is to flesh out the concept, put some more details behind it in terms of the legal arrangements, the accounting arrangements, the whole business apparatus that would support that kind of a proposal. We're in the midst of doing that now. We have a project budget, and all 14 counties within the region have contributed, and we understand there's another single tier municipality will be joining the Western Warden shortly and will be contributing to that. So that's very positive. We are getting some opposition from the local service providers who see this as a potential threat or not necessarily, in their view, achieving what we're trying to achieve. And we're now in the midst of a dialogue with those folks to see whether we can't either build a better level of understanding or find some middle ground that might be a win-win for all parties involved. So we're having those serious talks right now. At the caucus meeting in June, I believe it's June 20th, it'll be in Dufferin County, we will be presenting a report to caucus with our response to the submission made by the local service providers. So that's a pretty pivotal meeting as to whether or not the project proceeds. So that's happening. So that's dealing with the hardware, so the actual network, the guts of a system. There's another project we're involved in, and this is with the SWIA, the Southwest Economic Alliance. There's another board member here, actually, sitting in the back. It's nice to see James. We are working on the other side of the coin when it comes to broadband. It's the user applications, and that's looking at an intelligent region And once you have broadband of sufficient capacity and speed, what do you do with it to build community, to build economic prosperity? And SWIA is now moving into the community capacity building benchmarking process. They're hiring a number of folks through a grant with the provincial government to bring folks in from EI who have the skill set to help us do some community outreach. And that will be happening very, very soon. The job postings are up and the positions are being filled as we speak. So that will be moving very quickly. Grey County is involved in that. We actually were the pilot project last year for this. So we're kind of ahead of that curve a little bit. So we'll be moving into the phase 2, which is actually engaging community to develop a plan forward. So what are we going to do as the various communities within Grey County? What are we going to do to actually seize the opportunity once, in fact, we have high-speed broadband well entrenched in the county? And we're not there on that first step yet. So we have to get that and then apply the applications. So those are the two that we're dealing with.
Just to touch on the broadband thing, I think it was Mayor Hazel McCallion that said she values opposition because it forces you to go back and confirm what you're doing is right. And I think that's the stage we're at with the broadband thing. The local independents have challenged what we have proposed, and they're challenging it fairly strongly. And so they should. But we're in the midst of trying to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. It's a little bit frustrating, and as I was talking to James earlier, a lot of people think they have high speed now, but they don't. Compared to the rest of the world, we are abysmally far behind in terms of capacity and speed and stability of system, and that's in fact what this proposal or this project will build, and eventually get fiber to every home in the region. How far out that is, I don't know, but that's where we're at. We'll see what the challenge produces in terms of new ideas, or whether we just bear down and get her done.
Thank you. Councillor Lemon.
Yes, Your Worship. Going from some really wonderful things in the future, there's one that sort of smells in the summertime, and that is dealing with garbage. I really feel collection should be a local responsibility, but slowly but surely the existing landfills, we used to call them dumps, but now they're landfills, are getting full. And I think that if we're going to get some kind of a cohesive plan for perhaps waste from energy, or energy from waste rather, I think you've got to work on the county basis. I don't think like Owen Sound doesn't generate enough garbage for it. Grey County may. Maybe it's Grey and Bruce counties. I don't know. But I really think that this is a problem that's only going to get worse. As each landfill in the area reaches its capacity and closes, we know that you're not going to get any more landfills as in the old days. So I think we have to start thinking ahead now, because it takes time. And I was at a presentation, I think it was a year ago, and this energy from waste is becoming more and more real. And we should, to protect our environment and our futures, be looking at this on the county basis.
I agree with you. But doing the right thing is extremely hard, and not everyone sees the light, so to speak. I know from our own experience in Southgate, we've had the biosolids plant. It is absolutely the right thing to do, rather than dump that stuff into the landfill. And the plant has been up and running for a year now. It works wonderfully, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. And in fact, it has saved some smaller communities, not disasters, but some real challenges because of the winter we had. They simply could not spread the stuff. So the plant in Dundalk was able to help them out dramatically. But there is a lot of misunderstanding about what those processes are. The technology is advancing dramatically in the last few years, and it will continue to advance like any other technology. So I think you're absolutely right. We need to start thinking and doing things instead of just talking about it. So, good luck with that.
I'm suggesting the county.
Yeah, I heard you.
Thank you, Councillor Lemon. A couple more questions?
Sure, it's up to you.
Okay.
You're running the clock, not me.
Okay, so hang tight. Councillor McManaman, then Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I would echo the Mayor's comments. Thank you to the Warden for hosting us in Drumore. I'd been to Glenelg many times, never made it across County Road 4 there into Drumore. And thanks to Councillor Wright for actually pointing me in the right direction, too.
I drove them all down, you know.
Now you can say you've seen the world.
That's right, that's right. My question is about the county transportation master plan, the road rationalization. As you know, I think you're aware that the city had a number of major concerns with that. Where are we with that process?
Do you want to?
Go ahead, Lance.
Okay, sure. Okay, maybe we should hear the warden's.
No.
So from a staff perspective, the consultants were charged with going back and looking at their information and their observations and conclusions based on the feedback they've received. They are about to be bringing back revised information to the steering committee, and that's going to happen through the month of May into June, and then there'll be another round of outreach into the stakeholder community to say, okay, here's the new information, the new conclusions, the new recommendations. What do you think of them? So that'll be happening over the next month, 6 weeks. So it's still very much alive.
If I might, did the Warden have a comment with that,
Well,
too?
just to be clear, it's so much more. I mean, a lot of people want to focus on the roads and the bridges rationalization thing, but it's so much more than that. Rural transportation, which includes the small urban centers, Durham, Hanover, the larger ones like Owen Sound. Rural transportation very much is the basis for so many things for our residents. It's a social thing, it's people getting to work, it's people getting to their health appointments. How do we bring all that together and make it work? So it's all important, but a lot of people want to concentrate on the downloading or uploading or whatever you want to call it. I shouldn't even have said that word, I guess, but the trading of ownership of various pieces of infrastructure and seeking the right level where they should be is part of the transportation plan, there's no doubt. But there's so much more to it than that. Just as an example, we talk about bridges. It just doesn't make sense to have a county bridge out in the middle of Southgate that's on a Southgate road. It just doesn't make sense to me. So why wouldn't that bridge belong to Southgate, for an example? So we're working on those things for sure, but we haven't lost sight of the broader picture for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was going to ask about broadband too, but I just comment on that. If the service providers are worried about what the counties are doing, then they maybe should provide broadband service, and then there wouldn't be any worries about the counties being in competition with them. I'm glad to see that there is a follow-up report from the county roads thing. The one I wanted to ask about, there was a lot of fanfare about 2 years ago at one of the Warden's forums about the modernization of county governance. Where, excuse me, where are we with that?
Basically, the county decided that we were good where we were, as far as the county was concerned. But interestingly enough, as the good mayor mentioned down at the Warden's Forum, the second speaker, Dr. Siegel, was talking about governance versus government. And I think there's, as you mentioned, there's a lot of thought-provoking things there that we should be considering. It's not about, our silo and this silo. It's how do we provide whatever services are needed to the people, and what is the more appropriate level of government to do that. So there may be some opportunity to go back and have another look at that, but in terms of the governance at the county level, it was decided that we're good where we are. Maybe Lance, do you want to add?
No, that's it in a nutshell.
Councillor Body.
Thank you, Your Worship. When you asked questions last, everyone gets to steal your thunder, and so I want to ask about broadband. I was going to ask about restructuring, et cetera. The public's a way out ahead of us politicians on this issue. They see it. They've seen a Board of Education, a health unit that's combined Grey and Bruce. They're seeing efficiencies there, and we still seem to be chugging along in that Baldwin Act of 1948 model with a little bit of change. A year and a half ago, I realized the county, one of the committees did look at governance and what they're doing. When's it come back up again, or when can it come back up again? We've got an election in the fall, so obviously nobody's going to run too far between now and then, but is it just sending people back out to the county after the next election that want to start the discussion? How do we get it going again? So the people, the public sees it. It's just us that seems to be dragging our feet.
Well, good point. You're absolutely right. And I guess if you're so inclined to run this fall for re-election, that'd be a great platform.
I run for the hills, you mean?
Well,
The exact opposite direction.
You made the observation that the public's way out ahead of us, so maybe we should be trying to catch up.
Councillor Burden.
I wanted to ask about part of the county's work is to attract and retain newcomers. Are there any specific plans or projects ahead on attracting and retaining newcomers in Grey County?
Sure, I can speak to that. It's actually an item in our operating plan, and I'm just in what we just handed out to you. It's slated for us to tackle in a fulsome way next year. That's not to say we aren't working on it now. We're actually in partnership with the Provincial Government Ministry of Rural Affairs and with the 4 counties Workforce Planning Board, or whatever it's called. They're very big on that, and so we're partnering with them. Last year we did some workshops with them. There's some talk again of doing additional work this year, so they're moving it. It's not on our plan to really dive into it until next year. It's all part of the bigger economic development strategy, and this year we're setting our minds and our resources to actually getting a strategy for Grey County as to what our role is going to be, how we're going to use the resources we have in moving forward, and I would be very confident in saying that that aspect will be front and center of any strategy that gets developed. So it's in our plan now. It'll probably just get somewhat enhanced as we go through the work this year, and then next year we'll be diving into it in a big way, because it is key to where we have to go, for sure.
Absolutely. Any other members of council? Seeing none, I want to thank you for coming here this evening and fielding the questions, and in fact getting a bit of a sense from all of our council where we're headed and what we're looking at. Of course, Councillor Wright and I are certain to always bring those items forward at every opportunity we can at the county. And I want to thank the county as well, Mr. Warden, for the support you have given over the years in our efforts to get the ear of Transport Canada and encourage them to do a maintenance dredge of our harbour. And the county level of government, the local level of government is very accountable. So if we decide not to plow a certain road in the winter, and we're asked why not, we have to provide that answer. And I have to say it's now time to press the Federal Minister of Transport to answer the question, why not? And so I'll be asking for your ongoing support in that effort. I thank you for coming tonight, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you. We have another member of the local corporate sector. I would welcome longtime friend Owen Sound, Mr. James Sconiak, Vice President of Corporate Affairs from Bruce Power.
Great.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I think I have a few slides I'm looking forward to sharing with council this evening. I don't have a password. But while you're doing that, I'll get started. So I do appreciate the opportunity to to provide an annual Bruce Power update. I'm pleased to say that we've managed to do these in both across Bruce, Grey, and Huron counties over the past couple of months, and given the interest from City Council coming to site last year and in a lot of issues that are going on at Bruce Power, we thought this would be a good practice to continue with. So I'm just going to get the first slide up here. So I know it's the end of April, so a 2013 overview seems a little bit out of date, but I think it really does help set the context for a lot of things that you can expect to see from Bruce Power throughout the balance of this year and in the many years to come. From the outset, if we look at the region, the site has an impact on both economically and from a workforce point of view. City of Owen Sound is actually our largest urban center close to the site, and more we are seeing, in particular among the skilled trades, a lot of people actually residing in the Owen Sound area, Owen Sound Grey area, and commuting in. So, although 10, 15 years ago, the vast majority of people, and they do today as well, continue to reside in Saugeen Shores and Kincardine, we are seeing the economic impact of the Bruce site be far broader than that. I just had the opportunity about a week and a half ago to make a presentation to Huron County Council. And if you look at what a lot of the county councillors sort of shared with me afterwards, because of frankly a slowdown in the economy across the board, you're seeing skilled tradespeople not in demand throughout the province like they previously were. So a lot of our capital investment projects tend to be picking up a lot of that slack. So I'm sure you're sort of seeing that impact probably more significant today than it ever has been. In terms of a 2013 overview, we continued with a very strong industrial safety record, one of the top in actually the power sector. We achieved 15 million hours worked without a lost time injury. Just today, I had the opportunity to take a visitor through our Bruce Nuclear Generating Station A, which I think many of you also had the chance to see on your tour. And that facility, which employs on a daily basis about 1,300 people, produces about 15% of Ontario's electricity. It's gone 11 years straight without a lost time injury. So just to give you a sense, you'd have a tough time finding an office building, an office block where you had a better lost time injury rate than that. And this is a very intense industrial facility, so we're very proud of that safety record. There's a lot of discussion in Ontario right now on the electricity system, and 2013 is turning out to be a lot similar to what we're seeing this year. Nuclear is providing actually about 60% of the province's power is what we produced last year, and Bruce Power was over half of that. So the Bruce site last year and throughout this year continues to set an output record. Interestingly enough, when the Bruce site reached its full capacity, as it was finished construction late 1980s, there was never enough transmission on the Bruce site to actually get the full capability of the site off-site. So the new Bruce to Milton line, which came into service about 18 months ago, is serving us well. And also the strong operational performance of the units is allowing us to really deliver a strong role in the province. About 10 days ago, the province announced the closure of the final coal-fired station in Thunder Bay. And so now Ontario is officially off coal generation. We're one of the first jurisdictions in North America and throughout the world to actually phase coal out. Coal was about 1/3 of our output 12 years ago. And one of the things that you've seen in some of our advertising, our nuclear up, coal down kind of theme, we're reminding people that the output from the Bruce site has accounted for about 70% of that goal to phase coal out. One of the questions we've been getting a lot from folks is on electricity prices, energy rates across the board, whether it's natural gas prices, propane prices, hydro bills. A lot of people ask us, how does the cost of what we produce stack up in terms of their electricity bill? So we like to share some annual information on this. Last year, the average price paid by consumers for electricity in the province was 8.5 cents. So if you took your average electricity bill across the province and you averaged out the different times of use and volumes of use, the average price was about 8.5 cents. And Bruce, we sold our electricity on average for about 6 cents last year. And that's an all-in cost. That covers all of the billions of dollars of investment that we put into the assets. It covers the funds we have to set aside to manage waste and decommissioning, and everything is part of our operation. So, one of the challenges that we tend to have is we talk about hundreds of millions and billions of dollars that we invest in our assets, and oftentimes the public views that as related to a higher cost of electricity. But as you can see from visiting our facility, we produce huge volumes of electricity and are able to have a very cost-competitive price. In fact, I'm sure every member in the room would take 6 cents for all the electricity on your hydro bill tomorrow if you could. I'm going to skip over the investment on the site last year because I'm going to spend a few minutes and talk about what we're doing this year and what kind of economic impact we see that having. One of the most significant milestones for us in 2013, and I'll be sure to follow up with members of City Council on a copy of this document, but in December the government released a revised long-term energy plan. And this was a fairly significant review. There were open houses held throughout the province. There were almost 10,000 Ontarians who submitted feedback into the process, and I want to thank Owen Sound City Council for also making a submission as part of that process. But the reason why this was important was this was the first real review of the long-term plan, where the adjustment for long-term demand growth was really looked at in the post-recession period. So when that plan came out, the government, although they did decide to indefinitely defer the construction of new reactors, which was something actually that Bruce Power felt was supported and was a pragmatic decision, the good news for us was that the government committed to the refurbishment of the remaining Bruce units, and that's really the basis of all of our investments. Sort of to fast forward to this quarter, which we just had our Bruce Power board meeting on site last week and had the opportunity to share these results with the board. In the first quarter, we had an outage program on our Unit 7 reactor. And even though we're not in the process right now of any major refurbishment projects, these numbers just give you a sense on what we continue to invest in the facility. So Unit 7, it was a 2-month outage program. We had almost 1,000 additional staff coming to work on site. We invested $75 million in that and completed over 16,000 tasks during the outage. So very significant work going on to the units. That outage just finished up about a week ago. Currently, we're in the process of an 81-day outage on our Unit 3 reactor. And just to give you a sense, that has about 1,000 temporary staff on site doing a lot of work on the facility, and that's a $90 to $95 million investment program. So these are just part of ongoing investments into the units to maintain their reliability. One of the important milestones for us in recent months was, and you may have seen a little bit about this in the news, we had a partnership restructuring at Bruce Power. Cameco, who's one of Bruce Power's initial investors, decided to exit the Bruce Power investment, and Omer's pension plan, through their investment arm at Borealis, decided to step up their interest in Bruce Power. It wasn't because Cameco, as they said in their statement, they didn't exit the Bruce investment because they didn't feel it was the reason for exiting wasn't that they didn't think the business was healthy, or it was just that for those of you that sort of follow the various sort of stocks and companies on the market, Cameco is an uranium exploration and development company. And as we're looking at the future of the Bruce site in terms of what's going to be required, the major investments required in the Bruce site require significant upfront capital and long-term stable rates of return. And if you're an investor in a mining or an exploration company, you tend to be a bit more probably looking at investments that are probably a bit more volatile, but the potential to get you a higher return. So this was just a straight business decision by Cameco. The positive news was that Omer's pension plan was able to step up. I know a lot of municipal employees are represented by the Omer's pension plan, so you're now a greater owner in Bruce Power. And now, as of now, OMERS, who represents police officers, firefighters, folks throughout the public sector, owns about 56% of Bruce Power on a combined basis. So, this is about us structuring our partnership to be prepared for the next round of investment. Just to kind of move along, our CEO held our first ever telephone town hall in the first quarter. This is something I like to sort of give elected officials some feedback on, because typically our CEO holds a town hall every January, and weather permitting, we're lucky to get 50 to 100 people out in the weather that we get here in Midwestern Ontario. So we decided to do something a little bit different this year and do a telephone town hall, and we covered Bruce, Grey, and Huron counties, and we had 11,000 participants on the phone for that hour with our CEO. So that's something we're looking to build on and continue on in future years. You'll also see we have some good news actually coming up in the Grey County region in the coming weeks also on this front, but we're continuing with our community investment and sponsorship program, and we'll invest approximately $1.4 million into the region this year. And the last item that I'll flag is this summer we're recommencing site bus tours. This was something that the company stopped doing after 9/11. But for those of you that have visited the site, you're aware that the nuclear plants themselves are very protected security areas. So what we're doing with these bus tours is really bringing people onto site. We're not able to bring them into the nuclear area, but it's an opportunity for people to get a little bit closer and understand our facility. So of course we've had to make some fairly significant arrangements to enable this, but we think the public's very interested in seeing the facility up close. I just want to close with some polling, which I previously distributed to members of County Council, and I'll follow up to members of City Council. On an annual basis, we hire Ipsos Reid to do polling across Grey, Bruce, and Huron counties. And the reason for this is it's really the only kind of quantitative way you can sort of understand what issues are most important to people. And as a company, where are the areas that people feel we're doing a good job, and where are the areas we can improve. So we've released these results publicly. I'm happy to share them, as I said, with everybody. But I guess there's kind of 2 or 3 kind of key messages from the polling in the region that I think are relevant. The first is, on a lot of the issues related to Bruce Power's operation, not a significant change of opinion from year to year. So we see a relatively stable level of interest and I would say support broadly for the work the company's doing. Of course, as you can see from the various attitudes towards Bruce Power, we're very pleased with the results, but it's not something we're taking for granted. It just reinforces the need to do some of these things. The 2 other issues I'll leave you that came out in the polling. The first was the top issue in Bruce, Grey, and Huron counties continues to be jobs, the economy, unemployment, and that's where we see a particular interest in the what are Bruce Power's long-term plans. So, even though we've had a relatively successful run at Bruce Power over the last 10 to 13 years and investing in the assets, across the region there's still a fair amount of concern around the local economy and jobs, and that comes out as the top issue in the community. So when we're communicating as a company, we're going to really focus, not entirely, but to a large degree, on those economic things that we're doing that we think will have an impact, because that appears to be where the interest is. The other thing is, and this is interesting for us, we also like to ask people, how do they want to be communicated with? We, as you know from our launch of our app, we've done a lot of things to try to innovate in our communications, more social media, the use of an app. But when you ask local residents, overwhelmingly, they still like to receive local information relevant to their communities through what I would call very traditional means, whether it's print newspapers, newsletters mailed directly to their house, or through coverage on the radio. So oftentimes we'll get feedback saying, hey, why do you guys send out these newsletters to every household? Or why do you? It's because when we ask people, that's still how they like to receive their information directly. So, as we're looking at how we communicate with the public, and communications is a two-way street as far as we're concerned, you'll see us continue to use those traditional methods as a way of engaging citizens in the community. So that's kind of I'm probably been generous with the 10 minutes I was given here, but I'm happy to answer any questions people may have.
Thanks very much, James, and I think we do have a couple of questions
Great.
for you. Councillor Wright?
Thank you very much. The telephone conference that your president held, I just have a question that
Sure.
I've thought of, because I listened in there
Okay.
into that. I was part of that, as I didn't ask a question. Were the questions, did you know who was going to ask the questions, or were the questions just thrown out by the people that were on the phone?
So this is a really interesting tool they have. So the answer to so you can do telephone town halls a number of ways. You can do an infomercial if you want. But for those of you that know our CEO, his position with the telephone town hall is, I'll take whatever questions come up, and that was the approach we took. So the way it works is, because you literally have so many people on the line, is our CEO is there doing the telephone town hall, and as people call in and ask a question, it registers on a computer, and what you try to do is bundle questions together. So let's say, for example, one of the questions somebody had was, how do I get a job at Bruce Power? There could be 10 questions in the queue on that, so we try to kind of bundle them together to get a range of questions. But no, they were all completely live. In fact, it was really interesting when the caller calls the moderator and says, has something that they're really burning to ask, and then when they get on the call, sometimes the tone is a bit dampened when they get on the line. But no, it was a live thing, and our CEO just loved it.
Well, then they did a good job, because I didn't think there were any questions that were frivolous or
Nope.
or silly or anything like that. So I just wanted to know if they were. Thank you.
And our CEO, and I know you've all met him and know him, he really does like it when people have the opportunity to ask a very direct question. Maybe a tough question, may actually disagree with Bruce Power on something, but it allows folks to deal with that.
Thank you.
Councillor Chamberlain?
It's complimentary too. I just recently had a visit to the visitor center, and I do congratulate you on starting the bus tours up again, and it was refurbished and it's really well done. And the second one, the library board just received a gift from to have a designated terminal in our library for people who come in. If they're looking for jobs at Bruce Power, they can look that up, and they can look up any information about Bruce Power, and we thank you for that.
Great. Yeah, no, thanks for that. And I can we're doing that across Huron, Bruce, and Grey counties. We're still rolling it out, but what we want to try to do is we've selected 7 or 8 communities to start. We went through the county libraries in Bruce and Grey counties, but we approached the library boards directly in Grey. We picked a handful of communities, and what we're doing is putting an iPad with an iPad stand so people can get their electricity calculators there. There's new calculators we put on there and how they can save money on their bills by shifting their use. Mm-hmm. And so we're really looking, and of course, as you mentioned, jobs. So we're looking forward to getting that in.
Councillor Lemon?
Yes.
One comment on your presentation that particularly impressed me was the safety record that you've maintained at the Bruce. That is an example of good industry, good corporate conscience, and I really congratulate you on that. I was sort of mentally calculating, holy Toledo, that's a huge, huge number. And you're probably right, there are office buildings with a lower safety record than that. And not only that, the fact that the Can-Do system you're using is such a safe technology, and your safety record is exemplary. Congratulations.
Well, thanks, and it's one of those things where we are running a very big, complicated technology, but at the end of the day, the safety record, what it does is it gives you confidence people have the right behaviors when they go into work, right? And it's that, if you can, it's like any safety thing, it's a triangle. If you can manage the relatively small items that could become injuries where somebody has to take a day off, the larger things, to some degree, do take care of themselves, if that right behavior is there with what everybody does every day. And today, for those of you that today was the National Day of Mourning for workers who, injured or died on the job, and we had a ceremony on site, because it's one of those things that every accident is 100% preventable. That's our kind of methodology on site, and so it's an appropriate comment to make today especially.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to wrap up with, James, so I thank you for saying those words for me. We had a ceremony this morning on the steps of City Hall as well, and Bruce
Great.
Power's track record is impeccable in that regard, so I thank you. Thank you on behalf of council and the city for, not only for coming here tonight to provide us with this update, but also for your incredible support, Bruce Power's support as a great corporate citizen, and the tremendous investments that you make in our community for nonprofit groups and a number of NGOs that really have come to rely on the good fortunes and benevolence of Bruce Power. So I thank you.
Thank you very much.
And wish you a good evening.
Appreciate the time.
Thank you. We have one more deputation this evening, and I'll invite Mr. Peter Ferguson to the podium. Welcome, Mr. Ferguson.
Hi. I'll try to be short because the one's quite late. And I have to compliment you on the amount of time you put into taking care of all the business. So I'll try not to drag it out further than I have to.
You just push that microphone on. There's a button on the platform. There we go.
Speak.
There you go.
I can speak. Okay. Has everyone got the worksheet? Yeah? Good. My name is Peter Ferguson. I live at Kimberley. I'm an architect of 30 years standing. I operate a studio there. We've been published internationally and have international awards for our work. I'm also creative director of Social Action Strategy, which is it's a consultancy that works with, as yourselves, public citizens and private citizens to further human development and human rights. And that's why I'm here tonight, to try and help you with the problem. The couple of questions first, though. How many of you were at the secret MRI meeting? Could you put your hands up?
Mr. Ferguson, this council doesn't have secret meetings, so if this is going to be a question and answer period, I would suggest that you direct your questions to me.
Oh, how many were at the meeting?
All of council.
Thank
There
you.
was no secret meetings. Let's get back to there are no secret
Interesting.
meetings.
Okay, good. And I guess the other thing I wanted to ask was, you can see on the worksheet where, and because I want to clear this up just so I'm not talking through my hat. I wonder, has council published, as it says, have you already published a statement that you acted illegally, you apologize to those you serve, and that you will not again act illegally? Have you done that?
Mr. Ferguson, there's a letter in the open meeting, which I believe you have a copy of right now, from our solicitor, and all of the responses to which you are seeking are in that letter.
Yes, I have
Matter
that.
of the public record.
I have that.
Right here, and I believe the media has a copy as well.
Some of them do, I know, yes. Okay, so the question then is, will you now publish a statement that you acted illegally, apologize, and will not act illegally again? That is, are you ready to do that now?
Again, all of the information that you're looking for is in the letter from our solicitor.
No, he knows
And
nothing.
it responds to it quite clearly.
He knows nothing about what you intend. I'm asking what you intend.
Our intention is always to fall within the purview of the Municipal Act of Ontario,
Yes.
which we do.
Oh, so you think you do. That's good. Okay, so...
You've got about 2 more minutes with that attitude.
Sorry, I don't have an attitude, man.
Oh, okay. You just keep going.
Sorry.
Keep going.
Okay, well then... Well, let's go to the third question,
Okay.
which was... Oh, no, because actually your lawyer responded to this, and I doubt your approach has changed, that will you instruct your designated investigator to review the meeting? And he said he didn't think so. Do you still feel that way?
It would be a colossal waste of time and money.
So no. Okay, good. Well, let me put it to you then. You're in a situation, it's a problem for you, that the people who live here and for whom you work, when they approach the voting booth, they're going to have trouble at present. There are three three ways things can go from here. Either you can not do anything, as I think you intend. You can have someone else go to, in this case, the ombudsman to look at your work. Or you can yourselves go to the ombudsman to look at your work, yes? I can't think of any other options. So if someone, let's say the first option happens, you don't do anything, then a voter will think to him or herself, may think to him or herself, while considering who to vote for and looking at the name of a councillor, that, well, I don't know whether that person broke the law because we never found out. I'm not sure I like that question hovering in my mind. That might not be to your benefit. If we take the second approach and you get someone else to go to the ombudsman will come back with one of two answers. Either, yes, council broke the law. In that case, it's probably the worst case, and it's the one we don't want. Your voter will think, well, okay, council broke the law, and didn't even take the trouble, wasn't concerned to find out whether it did or not. It was inactive, and it broke the law. If, however, the decision comes back from the ombudsman that, no, council didn't break the law, well, then you're golden. That's great. You were willing to find that out yourselves. You got someone else to do it for you, but you're okay. So that's not a bad solution. If, however, you go to the ombudsman yourself and say, please, can you help us out here? We don't really know whether we're legal or not. We'd like to find out. Could you please tell us? And he comes back with his response. If you're guilty, as he finds, then that's not desirable. But at least the voter will think, well, these folks, something went wrong, and they were really intent on finding out for me whether they broke the law. Yes, they broke the law. They've said it now, and they've said they're sorry, and they've said they'll never do it again. These are not bad people. But if you go to the ombudsman, and the ombudsman finds that you're not guilty, then the voter will think, these people took it upon themselves. They were questioning what they were doing. They immediately took care of it themselves, and they were not guilty, and they're very good. I'm probably going to vote for them. Those are your options. Whoops, sorry. So, my question is, are you going to decide on this issue today, tonight? Do you do that? Take a deputation presentation and then decide on it the same night?
Council has an opportunity to receive your correspondence tonight, or to receive your deputation tonight,
Yeah.
as well as acknowledge and receive the letter from the city solicitor,
Right.
which clearly indicates to council that in fact there is no justification for a complaint, and there's certainly no need for an investigation at significant public expense.
I'm sorry,
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes?
This council-
Is that a letter to me or to you?
this letter is to you.
Well, I've had that letter.
That's right.
Right.
And what I'm telling you is that this council also acknowledges that this complaint is not worthy of an investigation. We have publicly acknowledged that, in fact, we did meet in camera to discuss the matter, but we have also publicly disclosed that it did not properly fall within one of the exceptions of the rule that meetings are to be open to the public.
But
That
you-
has been clearly made public. We have discussed it in this council chamber. We have made statements in this council chamber. And in terms of whatever it is you're looking for,
Yeah.
I'm not really sure you're going to find it.
Okay.
But if you have all the time in the world,
No, I have his letter. Thank you. Yes.
that's good. It is
And as I-
good to be held to open and transparent governance.
Quite so. And as I said to him, breaking the rules is not breaking the law. It's different. And for you to say, as you have through him or however, that you broke the rules does not answer the question, did you break the law? And that's really important. And that's the important matter that only the ombudsman can rule on.
Thank you for your
And I would
presentation.
advise you to ask him.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thanks very much.
Have a good evening.
And you.
Are there any members of the public here this evening that would like to ask a question of this council? Seeing none, we have correspondence. Councillor McManaman.
Just wondering, we have the people from the Sydenham group here, and I'm wondering if it might be appropriate to move that up on the agenda.
That'd be great.
And
Is that okay with council?
12B4.
12B4. We'll pull that forward. And we'll go back to the correspondence. Councillor McManaman, would like to speak to this item?
Certainly. Well, I'd ask, Your Worship, if it's allowable, if we could have the staff introduce the...
Absolutely.
It's a fairly complicated report, and if that would be all right.
Ms. Coulter, could I ask for an overview for those of us that are here and watching at home on this report?
Thank you, Your Worship. A replacement report was put on Council's agendas this evening. As reports get edited, unfortunately, not the most current version was published with the agenda, so my apologies. A current version is on your trays and on your desk and has been provided to the applicant as well tonight. Council will recall that there's a proposal to redevelop the former Todd's Sporting Goods building as well as the building to the north, the former Thompson Furniture building. When Council rezoned those lands in 2013, we used a holding provision, and the holding provision required that certain matters be addressed prior to the holding provision being removed. And those 5 items were a site plan agreement, hydrostatic, hydrodynamic assessment, final geotechnical work, as well as a record of site condition. The applicant has submitted information in order to address the various conditions. The hydrostatic and geotechnical, you'll see that Grey Sauble Conservation Authority in their correspondence, which is attached, provides a sign-off on those items, and those were conditions recommended at the time of the rezoning application by the Conservation Authority. In terms of the site plan agreement, we do have that signed agreement. We have the securities under the agreement. We're just awaiting some finalization of plans so that those plans can be referenced in the appendix, and that will be finalized. The record of site condition, the Environmental Protection Act does require a record of site condition where there's a change of use on a property from one use to something that's considered to be a more sensitive use. The regulation also includes an exemption, and that exemption is highlighted in yellow in the report that's provided for you this evening. The engineering consultant working for the developer, Gamsby and Manoro, provided a letter dated February 6th that states that based on their review of the existing building and proposed development and their interpretation, the development would be exempt from the requirement of a record of site condition since part of the building was under residential use and the proposed residential redevelopment is substantially restricted to the part of the property where the commercial industrial residential building is located. The applicant's legal counsel, Doug Grace, who's in attendance tonight, also provided a legal opinion that's attached to your report that the exemption from the record of site condition would be appropriate. The city did consult with the Ministry of Environment with regard to the use of this exemption. We had Mr. Treslin for the city write to the MOE and indicate that the city's prepared to accept these opinions unless the ministry has an objection. The MOE's lawyer, Mr. Doug Waters, did write back to the city, neither objecting nor failing to object to the course of action. So the ministry has provided no clear objection to the city relying on these opinions and the letters provided by the applicant and their legal counsel and consulting engineers. And the CBO will be relying on these opinions presented in the 2 letters in order to issue the building permit, because there will need to be compliance with the Act at the time that we issue the building permit. So the recommendation is, with respect to the application to remove the holding provision, that council approve and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign bylaw 2014-56 to remove the holding provision from the core commercial special zone at the northwest corner of 1st Avenue West and 9th Street East, and that we request the CBO ensure that the building permit include a condition to have the qualified geotechnical engineer throughout the foundation preparation and installation process at the expense of the developer. And that was a request of the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority to ensure that the geotechnical work is in accordance with that's been recommended by Peter McCallium, who did the geotech.
Thank you very much. This is a big step forward now. Councillor Lemon.
You want someone to move the motion, Your Worship?
I would be delighted.
I will so move that we accept the recommendation, and I think all of council is very, very pleased that this is moving ahead.
Certainly, Councillor Twaddle, then Councillor McManaman.
Thank you. I just echo that it's great to see this project moving ahead. It's nice to see the scaffolding up, and really anxious to see it. I wonder if the street address is correct. The reference to First Avenue West should be First Avenue East and 9th Street East. It's in the recommendation and in the preamble, but other than that, I think it's great.
Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. Just a couple of questions about this issue of the record of site condition. So the Ministry of the Environment sets the regulation of what's required, what's exempt, as you've laid out in the report. We have an opinion from the proponent's engineer. We have an opinion from their legal counsel, and the Ministry of the Environment refuses to give, what was the wording? They neither object nor fail to object. It's an interesting choice of words, considering it's their regulation. So just moving forward here, who ultimately is responsible to ensure that the act is followed?
Through your worship, certainly not an expert in the Environmental Protection Act. It does speak to a qualified person, and they are people who can prepare a record of site condition. Often the trigger for a record of site condition, where it's not required in this instance to remove a holding provision, when you're issuing a building permit, you have to ensure that there's compliance with applicable law, and the Environmental Protection Act would be one of those pieces of legislation. So it does fall to the city's CBO to ensure that, all legislation, so fill and construction regulations, planning, all of those things are adhered to in the issuance of a building permit. So ultimately, the CBO has to be satisfied and will rely on the letters that have been presented by the developer in this instance.
Thank you for that. As far as next steps go, where does it go from here? Might be a better question for the proponent, but perhaps you can.
Through the mayor, we're one of the conditions that council had imposed at the time of site plan approval was a requirement for architectural control guidelines. We're just working back and forth with the developer on some minor changes to those guidelines. As you know, council had signed the site plan agreement. We were holding it in escrow. You'll recall that there was a tricky little issue about the geotechnical testing before they actually owned the property. So we had that agreement signed. We're just waiting for the final drawings so that we can list those in one of the schedules. Council's already authorized the bylaw to allow the mayor and clerk to execute that. So as soon as we have that, we'll have final building drawings. When the CBO is prepared and is comfortable, they'll issue a foundation permit and a full building permit. So we're very close to that.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And I just echo the other speakers and congratulate Mr. Peary and his team for, it's been a long process, but it appears we're in the home stretch. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion to the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. And again, thank you to Mr. Peary and all those involved. It's a very exciting project for Owen Sound, first of its kind in many, many ways, and we look forward to that ribbon cutting, I say. We do as well. Congratulations. We have now a number of pieces of correspondence. We have 3 pieces of correspondence. Councillor Boddy.
I was going to move the first one. It is the non-smoking bylaw from the county for smoke-free municipal spaces. Yes. somebody at the moment won't have to go the full 9 meters away from the building to smoke this, to smoke until this bylaw comes into place. We had made many submissions, I think it was through Parks and Rec Committee, to try and add some teeth to this, or a little more, to spread it a little bit further on municipal properties. Obviously, other municipalities in Gray didn't feel the same way. I guess we're going to move ahead 1 foot at a time, and hopefully we can amend it at some point in the future and we can add to it, or we can do our own thing within the municipality of Owen Sound. In accordance with the terms of this, we can beef up non-smoking in public areas or public parks, municipally held properties as we go forward. So I move the recommendation that is the bylaw that they have sent to us.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor to support the bylaw as presented. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I'm not sure who I direct this question to. The 9-meter ban for municipal or smoking within 9 meters, I thought that already was in place.
Yes.
So if that is the case, what's this?
I'm going to refer to Councillor Wright, I think, as, can you respond to that as a member of the health unit?
That, the 9 meters was put in place by the city, I believe.
Grey County here.
Well, it was recommended by Grey County, but it was never put in under the bylaw. We have never had, like, the county no smoking bylaw wants to go further now. I guess that was the original bylaw. This one is going to go further. No smoking inside our county homes now, unless they're grandfathered now. If somebody is living in the home, they smoke, they'll be grandfathered. But we've included a lot more public places. The hospital has now gone totally non-smoking on their property, I believe. And so the original bylaw was 9 meters. This is more enforcement, Jim, I believe, is what we're looking for. This also has to get a triple majority vote, so.
Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship, and that's fine. I mean, as Councillor Boddy said, I support that. This doesn't go nearly as far as the other discussions we've had over the last year or two. So I'm just wondering if it's a friendly amendment. I agree with we also send this information to Parks and Rec for further discussion on perhaps there's perhaps the city wants to take a look at these open spaces and parks and playgrounds and that type of thing.
Yeah, I'd accept that amendment, yes.
So refer to Parks and Recreation Committee?
Yes. Well, sorry, so just to be clear, I meant support it and refer okay, thank you.
Okay, so the friendly amendment is to refer. Your motion is to support and refer the whole thing to Parks and Rec?
No, we're approving the bylaws drafted, sent from the county. We're sending it back as our approval. They still have to get everyone else's approval. And we're going to send this back to Parks and Rec to look at it for our own discussion within City of Owen Sound. Okay,
we're clear on that. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have correspondence from Minister Bob Chiarelli, Minister of Energy. This is regards to long-term energy planning, and I thought Council may be interested in sending this to operations, perhaps, or Councillor Purdon.
Yes, there appears to be municipal grants available for municipal energy plans, so I would like to see this go to operations for consideration.
Sure. All those in, discussion. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you. Just if we could get a staff report when it comes back, as opposed to just correspondence, because there's a number of points in here that I don't really fully understand, and I'm hoping the environmental superintendent can provide some context for the discussion.
I would expect that would be the protocol as it goes through to the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, that's carried. Thank you. We have correspondence from the president of CUPE. This is resulting from a meeting that I was invited to with regards to the proposed changes to Canada Post and not having home or door-to-door delivery right across the country, but specifically we are talking about Owen Sound. A number of municipalities have passed resolutions to request that the government relook and rethink phasing out of door-to-door mail delivery. And so this is before council for your direction. Councillor Adair?
I would move and note and file, Your Worship. I think if we received a letter from Canada Post telling us that if we would like this, we better plow the sidewalks on both sides of the street, we would probably not be too happy to receive such a letter.
We have a motion to note and file. Discussion, Councillor Purdon.
Well, I don't support the motion because I don't think that's why we got this letter. I think the concern is door-to-door delivery by Canada Post. I certainly think door-to-door delivery by Canada Post is a very good idea and support door-to-door delivery. And I think if we don't speak as a municipality on the issue, then we don't have a voice or a way of influencing those types of decisions.
Councillor Wright, thank you.
Thank you. I do not support the motion either. I think this is a very, I think it's important that we stand up for our citizens, and our citizens are wanting door-to-door delivery. It's going to make it very difficult for a number of people without door-to-door delivery, and we're going to end up with ugly boxes all over our city if we don't have door-to-door delivery. So I firmly believe that we should be presenting a motion, sending our own resolution to Canada Post and copy to our member of Parliament.
Further discussion? To the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion's defeated. A new motion? Councillor Purdon?
Yes, I would make a motion that we pass a resolution. Some of the wording could be maybe used from the Brantford resolution, saying that we would like to retain door-to-door postal delivery in Owen Sound, well, everywhere.
Okay. Clerk's clear on that motion? Are we adopting the one that's presented and inserting Owen Sound, or did you want a separate wording altogether?
I'm fine with that one, with Owen Sound. It looks, but I'm open if somebody at council has better wording.
Okay, so to the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. You know, it came to my attention that Canada will be the only country in the G20 that doesn't have home mail delivery, should this actually come to fruition. And the other component of this is Councillor Wright touched on it, I think maybe a little bit tongue-in-cheek, talking about the ugly boxes that will be everywhere. I can tell you, when it comes to snow removal, when it comes to planning issues around the use of property, they present an incredibly new set of challenges for municipalities. And you know at the end of the day who's going to be dealing with all the workload that comes down from the elimination of home mail delivery is going to be the municipalities. We're going to be the ones dealing with the snow removal issues and the graffiti issues and so on. I'm very pleased we've passed this. Councillor Wright.
Let me just add to that, because I did have a box on my lawn, but it was only on the boulevard, not my property, the city property, and it was to fill the mailbox. There's grass trimming. They don't trim the grass. They don't clean out around it. This is where everybody dumps their garbage around this box. And if we had a whole pile of them sitting around our city, we would eventually end up with a very ugly looking city.
And it goes without saying the impact this has on not only seniors, but also people with disabilities that are unable to make arrangements to get to boxes in inclement weather, which we have from time to time in Canada. Councillor Wright.
Your worship, was that motion was that included to go to our MP?
It will be
In the
circulated
motion?
to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving along, we have a series of reports and items on our consent agenda, including new business licenses, applications. It's council's direction. Councillor Wright?
I will move the consent agenda, your worship. It has many interesting things on it, including doors open, Owen Sound. I don't know if we want to comment about that at this time, but very interesting doors open. And we have a few planning issues that I'm not going to comment, but we have business licenses for various new businesses in the city. That would be exciting, so it's a good agenda.
Certainly, Owen Sound's doors open this year is May 31st to June 1st, and I know we're going to hear a lot more about that in probably 2 weeks' time. Thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We're at 12B1. We have a report from the Manager of Economic Development and Tourism. This is declaring the former jail and the former Grey County Court building as surplus. Council, I will expect, has read the report on this and understands the next steps. There was a letter on, I believe, on all of our desks tonight that if we could get a motion to receive this, please. That would be helpful for the public record. Thank you. Motion to receive from Councillor McManaman, and thank you to the writer of this. We'll have time to review it in the days ahead. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. And now with the report at hand, what is Council's direction? Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I'd be happy to move the recommendation that we move forward with formally declaring the jail and courthouse surplus to our needs and listing them for sale. And I would just highlight Mr. Furness's report. I'm a long defender of heritage and heritage buildings in our community. The best way to ensure the survival of this building is to find a viable use for it. And I believe that means a new owner. I'm just looking at Mr. Furness list that he's met with a number of the interested parties, a number of people that are currently in the building, but the city is interested in seeing the heritage and court building preserved, and that is best achieved with a new owner. I couldn't agree more, so sure. I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. There are further discussion to that? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. If I could also just be sure that this gets in the public record, the Canadian Association of Heritage Professionals is an organization. They're based in Ottawa. It's an opportunity to discuss with them perhaps an expression of interest that they would be willing to circulate throughout their network of heritage professionals across Canada and, in fact, internationally. And I'll provide that information to the clerk for future discussion. Thank you. We have a motion to buy a new tractor. Moved. Councillor Lemon, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. We have a technical report with regards to zoning bylaw amendment number 13. This is at 17th Street East, the 100 block on the Inner Harbor. And there is quite a detailed report, actually, that goes over what the proponent is seeking. Councillor Lemon.
Your Worship, I would move the recommendation. Something that's sort of interesting about this is that there is a slab there And that area in the past has been used for storage. At one time, it was used for, I think it was ammonium phosphate fertilizer and other materials. And to me, what they're asking is really not unreasonable, being as the area has been used for that type of storage. The new zoning bylaw does not permit the use. This would allow that. And the other thing, this potentially could develop into more use of our harbor, our undredged harbor, and might be just the kind of impetus that's going to get the federal government to take a progressive attitude on finally doing a maintenance dredge, which is badly needed in the harbor. So I think this is a reasonable recommendation at this point.
Thank you. To the recommendation, discussion, Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Worship. Just to point out, the recommendation is just to move to a public meeting
That's right.
on this matter.
That's right.
Perhaps could I ask, is it planning? Yes. If Ms.
Yeah.
Coulter could just briefly capture what
Absolutely.
the actual...
We are talking about the storage of aggregate, and it is the thing that you do when you have a mixed-use harbor. So I do think that a brief overview of the intent of the proponent's interests, please.
Thank you, Worship. On the screen, you'll see a picture. 17th Street runs east, runs kind of through the middle of the property. The harbor is there on the left. The subject property is the 6 hectares on the north side of 17th Street. So the area sort of surrounded in gray, you'll see the kidney-shaped area that Councillor Lemon was referring to as the area that was previously used for the storage of aggregate or other materials. So we have an application from Cuesta Planning Consultants on behalf of E.C. King and Division of Miller Paving. And the application, the purpose of this report is really to provide the background and policy context in which the application will be considered. So the proposal is really can be best described in 3 parts. One is the permission for a portion of the site, the kidney-shaped area and the area in gray, to be used for temporary open storage of aggregate for the purpose then of loading a barge. So the barge is shown as the rectangular-shaped object in the harbor on the left. So aggregate would be delivered by truck to the site. It would come in, be stored in small piles, moved by a conveyor to a large pile, and again by a conveyor over the federal lands to the barge in the harbor. The second piece is the removal of the H, very similar to the holding provision Council considered, relates to the Environmental Protection Act, and so that will need to be addressed as part of the application. And then thirdly, there is 2 zones on the subject property. So today the property is zoned mixed-use industrial and mixed-use commercial. If you can imagine that 8 hectares sort of split in part. They'd like to move the mixed-use industrial boundary about 20 meters to the west. So in terms of the application, there has been a number of supporting documents submitted with the application, a planning report, a traffic impact study, land use compatibility, looking at air quality and sound. You'll see there's a proposal for a sound barrier around the site, stormwater management report, as well as a conceptual stormwater management plan. These documents are summarized in the report, and they're also available in their complete form on the city's website, or you can obtain a copy here at City Hall. So we've talked, the report outlines the provincial policy statement. This will be considered under the new provincial policy statement. It's interesting to note there's some new provincial policies dealing with economic vitality and in particular speaks to protecting airports and marine facilities. So that's new in the PPS. The city's official plan talks about ensuring the harbor can thrive as both a shipping industrial as well as a recreation tourist area with a mix of uses, and that's an important consideration as we move forward. There's a number of official plan policies that are relevant to the application. So in terms of next steps, we would prepare for a public meeting on May 12th. We would certainly be looking for agency comments as we get ready for that, and be reporting both agency comments and public comments to council at the time of the public meeting. We're recommending peer reviews of the 2 technical reports. The traffic study, that's been recommended by both the county as well as our engineering division, as well as the land use compatibility study. We just don't have anyone on staff qualified to review that sound and air quality information. We would then prepare a staff report after the public meeting for council's consideration. There would also need to be site plan approval for the development. So that's sort of the next steps as we move forward with this application.
Okay. Discussion. Councillor Purdon?
So I understand that the plan is that the aggregate would be traveling, I assume, through Owen Sound to get there somehow, 6 days out of 7 for 12 hours a day. So I think in terms of the mixed use of that particular area, it would be a fairly big impact in terms of activity, noise, trucks, and all of those things. Could you remind me how many trucks
Sure.
an hour?
The traffic study does anticipate what would be happening, and each tractor trailer carries about 40 tons, so there would be 4 trucks per hour. So that would be 1 every 15 minutes. They would deliver 160 tons per hour. In a 12-hour day, that would be 1,920 tons. It would take just about 6 days for the 10,890 tons that would create the pile enough to load the barge. And they would do that 4 or 5 times over the summer months while the waterways are open. So it would take about 6 days with 4 trucks an hour to load or to create the pile large enough to load a barge for that to then move. So that detail is provided in the transportation study, and as I noted, engineering and the county have asked for a peer review and perhaps the consultant to look at a little broader area in terms of the traffic impact.
Thank you. Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Your Worship. Question, it talks about 3 years. Why 3 years? Was that their request?
Today, the property on the left closest to the harbor is zoned mixed-use industrial. If they were to store the aggregate in an enclosed building, the use would be permitted. So they're asking for a temporary use bylaw that would allow the use for up to a 3-year period, and then it can be extended 1 time for a maximum of 6 years. As an opportunity to really test, I think, the business case for this type of use in the harbor. So the applicant could provide more on that, but they are requesting this as a temporary use bylaw.
So that leads, so it is an open air type situation. It's not enclosed at all.
It is enclosed. It's hard perhaps to see on Schedule A, but you'll see that there is a proposed sound barrier around the perimeter of the area, the kidney-shaped area in the middle. You'll see, yeah, that's great. You'll see that there's a 3.5 meter walls acoustic barrier around that. And there is also sort of a raised curb around the kidney-shaped area that would be used to retain any runoff that would be caused by rainfall or anything like that.
When it comes back, could we get more information about that 3.5 meter acoustic wall? Just what it, even a picture of it, just it would help. Thank you.
Councillor Wright?
Thank you very much. If I could, through you, please, to Ms. Coulter. The paragraph that has me quite concerned is the one that says, let me see, that tractor trailers will run at 15-minute intervals for the 10-hour working day, 7 days, to build a sufficient stockpile for 1 barge load. Approximately 270 one-way trips, or 540 total days. A tractor trailer, depending what pit they're using or what pits they're using on the roads, 3rd Avenue East, which is County Road 15, coming down 6th Street, which is a truck route between 6 o'clock in the morning and 9 o'clock at night, I believe. That road is in very bad shape between 7th Street or 6th Street and 8th Street. And in fact, it's further down to 10th Street even. That is in very bad shape. The homes along those 2 blocks, if you've got a tractor trailer loaded with aggregate going every 15 minutes, that's going to shake up those homes something fierce. So when they do a peer review of the roads, could that be mentioned in there for them to take a look at that? And the manholes that are in those roads, every time a truck goes over them now, I can have a glass of water sitting on my dining room table and it'll bounce. So that all needs to be looked at before we have one going every 15 minutes loaded with aggregate. Please, thank you.
Councillor Body.
I have similar concerns as everyone else has voiced, and yet on the other hand, I can't help but think that the old song, "The wrist bone is attached to the elbow," or whichever. If we can get more use into our harbor and present a business plan that works, it's got to help whoever is interested in divestiture of our harbor taking over. If they've got a commercially viable harbor, it can only help, and it can only help with getting the dredging done. We have so many jobs that are dependent on the grain elevator on the other side that we could lose if we don't get it dredged, and if we can increase business of our harbor to make sure that we get it dredged, it's a bonus. But there's cost to everything and issues to everything, but there should be a positive spin-off if it works the right way.
Councillor Lemon?
Well, I live on the other side of the harbor and have for a number of years. And we have trucks loaded with salt leaving past my area. And yes, 3rd Avenue East is in deplorable condition, but so are the roads in my particular area. And the salt really is no different than the rock. I don't know the weight comparison exactly, but I don't imagine. But we also have, in addition to the salt trucks running, we have had other things unloaded there, and there is no sound barrier. It's much closer to residential use. There's a condominium that overlooks that. It's going through residential areas. The trucks hauling grain in and out of the elevator, depending on the season, may not be every 15 minutes, but when you add the salt trucks and the grain trucks together, you get a very high density of traffic. We, as a city, passed a strategic plan some time ago, which said we want a mixed-use harbor. The way you get a mixed-use harbor is you have people using it. One of the reasons that the federal government is loath to dredge the harbor, which everybody agrees is needed, or I think everybody does, is based on usage. And now all of a sudden, we have a usage thing. If Miller and King find that there is a good economic plan for the stone, they will undoubtedly look at a building and an enclosed area. And at that point, under the existing bylaw, they could put it in there and you'd have the same number of trucks. Yes, you have to move aggregate, but you have to move salt and you have to move grain. And the west side has had that going on for, I can't remember the date when the elevator was, that elevator, actually elevators were originally on the east side and then that one after they burned down. But we want a commercially viable port. The community will benefit, but also when you think about this, the people who mine the aggregate, that will be more jobs. And we need jobs in this area.
An awful lot of good comments here, I must say. Councillor Wright, you want to wrap it up?
I don't think anybody here is against this development. I think it's exciting to have mixed use. We have a mixed use harbor, and I think it's exciting to have something happening down there. And I know that the health unit, having been there on Friday morning, is going to come and talk about some of their concerns. But in the same respect, I think with everybody working together, all of these things can be worked out. And I think from the tone of the report that we had, it seemed to me that Miller was as anxious to work through all of these problems or concerns as anybody. So I don't think anybody's saying we don't want them. We certainly do want them, and we'll work however we need to work to iron out all of the potential issues that could arise.
I'm confident. The motion to move to a public meeting. I'm confident that we'll get there. We'll get to a public meeting, and we'll get there. So, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report from the Manager of Planning and Heritage. Oh, we've done this one. This was the removal of the holding provision on the Sydenham property. We move to 12B5. We have a report from our engineering assistant. This is with regards to First Avenue West road closure in support of the federal government's National Day of Honor ceremony. Council's direction. Councillor Lemon.
It's with great pleasure I would move that recommendation that we close the 800 block of First Avenue West, and from on Friday, May the 9th, from 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. We have a number of boards and committees for approval. It's council's direction, please. Councillor Purdon.
Move acceptance of the minutes for the committee.
Thank you. Is that approval or acceptance? Approval. Thank you. Councillor Wright and then Councillor Chamberlain.
I have a question in the operation minutes. I'm not going to look them out. It has to do with the medium that's in there. There is a question about, I guess I'm directing this through you to either, well, whoever can answer it, the new director of operations. Are they, I noticed that when they're looking at removing that media.
That's correct.
Because of snow plowing, or is that?
No, because we've had issues with the roadway. The roadway in that area has had some significant structural damage done to it, and in part that's because of the perviousness of the median.
I see. Well, I guess it's unfortunate we put it in the first place because it has a weed problem anyway that we've all complained about. But is it definite that it's going to be removed, or are you just looking at it?
Just looking at it.
Okay, thank you.
There's a fairly famous median in Collingwood on the Pretty River Parkway, which has been there for a number of years and seems to function quite well, and I think they get snow. Councillor Twaddle?
Well, I was just going to say that one of the issues is differential temperature across the roadway, and the snow on the median insulates the median when there's no snow on the pavement, so you have differential freezing and shifting, and that seems to be one of the issues. So there's a more detailed report coming back to the Operations Advisory Committee with recommendation or on options on how to deal with that going forward.
Thank you. Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, if I could just speak to the Recreation and Parks Advisory Committee report. It's really well done. There's a lot of work that's been done with the Owen Sound and Area Senior Center, and I just wanted to comment on the fact that there is quite an energetic group of their board members and volunteers working towards helping this community become an age-friendly community, and they just recently held a very nice seniors forum, and they're working towards a seniors council. And I think, and there'll be a new ramp for accessibility built there this year, and I just think that we'd like to make sure that we go forward. I know the plan is for the developing programming. I know it will come back for more work with the Recreation and Parks Advisory Committee, and I'd like them to know that we appreciate what they're trying to do in this community.
Absolutely. The folks down at the McQuay Tannery and the Bayshore Seniors Group, they've done an amazing job over the last couple of years in coming together and increasing their numbers and getting a real vision for what they want to see their organization become over in the near future. Certainly, it's a great accomplishment, and certainly provides lots of opportunities for retirees in our community. In fact, today I just wrote. I'm signing a letter in the morning that is being submitted by Ms. Traynor and her board for a grant application to get monies for the development of a seniors council, which is something for a number of years as a councillor I long advocated for. So I'm really pleased to see that moving forward finally. Thank you for pointing that out. Any other questions, comments, anything within the minutes? All those in favor? Oppose? That's carried. Thank you. There are no in-camera minutes for approval. Other business. We'll go directly to Councillor Purdon.
Yes, I just wanted to make council aware of two community workshops that are happening tomorrow night, Tuesday, at St. Andrews. There's going to be a workshop on precarious work and the impact of precarious work on communities like ours. Two very well-qualified speakers and a panel from our community. Looking at Canadian statistics, over 90% of new jobs are part-time jobs. The trend is more precarious work, not just lower wages, but work that moves around, where people have to put many jobs together to make a living wage. I think for our area that's of great concern. So they're at 7 o'clock. There's one tomorrow at St. Andrews, and on Wednesday the same workshop will be in Walkerton at the Jubilee Hall. Everyone's invited, and it's free, and it's a nonpartisan event sponsored by the Peace and Justice Coalition.
On that note, I was speaking with a woman the other day at a store, and I said, gee, I seem to see her everywhere. And in fact, I was right. She works 7 days a week. She has 4 part-time jobs and 2 children and a mortgage and a car. All things being equal, she's doing very, very well. But I don't know how sustainable that is for a human being today. Councillor Boddy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Each year for the last several years, the harbour has been decorated with banners that are painted and created by local artists. Some of them photographs, some of them painting, some of them collages. This was a private initiative, or initiative by a private person, Ted Brenner, who moved to Owen Sound, retired, and had done this idea in a town out west. He's been doing it with the tourism office and with the art gallery. This year there are 56 pieces of art, banners that will be going up along the harbour. Each of them done by a local artist, some of them done by kids, like little kids, and I guess it's kind of obvious, they're pretty neat, and some of them very professionally done. If someone wants to go to www.artebanners, so it's ARTEBANNERS.com. You can see the pieces of art. There's a form there that you can fill out, or if you go into the art gallery, you can pick up a form. They need sponsors to pay for them so that there's no cost to the City of Owen Sound. It's $100 per banner. A lot of them have been chosen already, but there's still some pretty neat ones to be picked there. And we get so many things done in this community by community people. You think back to the bandstand a year ago as an example. This is the third or fourth year, I believe, that this has been done, and it helps beautify our city, helps celebrate our local culture and our local artists, and it's neat that people get involved. They will present the banners at the market on, I think, Saturday, June 1st or 2nd. And last year's banners first, and last year's banners will be given to the sponsors that sponsored the ones from previous years, and they get to take them home and hang them in their offices or in their living rooms or wherever they want to hang them. So, thanks.
That's just such a great initiative, and it is one of those things that everybody can participate in.
Yep.
Very easily. The event at the market is fun, too, to see all the artists there and the folks who sponsored. And it's a great project for the community. Thank you. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to mention this is our last meeting before the 2014 Sports Hall of Fame banquet. So I just thought I'd mention that it is on Friday, May 9th at the Bayshore, 7 p.m. Dinner starts. The inductees this year are Bill Burlington, Paul Thornley, Jamie Grimbleby, Blaine Courtney, Al Hutchison, Deborah Killing, Andy Van Dolder, Sharon McKechnie, Ted Reed, the 1987 Bantam Boys bowling team, and the 1989 Junior Boys bowling team. If I'm not mistaken, they're the first bowling teams that are being inducted. So anyway, tickets are available at City Hall for anyone watching. Certainly I know council's invited as well. It's Friday, May 9th, the Sports Hall of Fame banquet.
Looking forward to it.
$30 each. Thank you, Councillor. $30 each. Thanks.
Should be a fun night.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Councillor Lemon.
Yes, Your Worship. Next week on the 8th, there will be a joint meeting of the Accessibility Committee and the Operations Committee, meeting with the consultant who will be bringing forth a report. The public, because it is a committee meeting, it will be open. It's at the Bayshore. It starts at 1:30. And I would encourage people who are interested in what the future of transit is to attend. And hopefully we can have the transit buses go into the Bayshore for that event so that people can get right off there rather than, sometimes we've been known to have rain here. So they can get off, particularly people with accessibility issues who do ride the regular transit. And that's at 1:30 on the 8th of May.
Good point. I was going to say we could get this on track, but then that would be more of a train analogy. So I would say we'll get this
On the road.
on the road. There we go. The rubber will hit the pavement, and so on. Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, my event is for May 14th and the 15th, and it's the Healthy Communities Conference. It's coming to the Health Unit on the Wednesday night, the 14th, starting at 5 o'clock, and it is very exciting this year. That, of course, that's Georgian College, and their food will be involved, and we have a wonderful speaker coming to talk about engaging the community and getting them going on what their vision for a healthy community is in the future. The next day at the Bayshore for the whole day, there is, we have now over 100 people registered, but we can take up to 150, so that would be very good if people would like to register. That's why I'm bringing it up tonight, because they would like to know the numbers by April the 30th. So if you would like to go on the website, graybrucehealthunit.com, all the information about the healthy communities is there. Thank you very much.
That looks like a really full agenda, I can say. Unfortunately, I can't be there on the Wednesday opening night. I'm involved in a fundraising event for the Salvation Army Food Bank and the Soup Kitchen. But I plan to be there all day Thursday, and the workshops look just so poignant and relevant to Owen Sound and to the area. It's great. Thank you. Anyone else other than me? Just one brief update. Saturday, I want to thank the Sydenham Sportsman Association for organizing the litter pickup on Saturday. There was a tremendous turnout of people. My area to pick up the garbage was all along the West Hill High School's tennis courts. And between my back and the amount of garbage I picked up, I can tell you it's cleaned up. It is definitely cleaned up. But a great thank you to everybody for pitching in on Saturday for that. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. A resolution adopting proceedings in committee of the whole, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Twaddle, that the action taken in committee of the whole in considering public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business be confirmed by this council.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Notices of motion. New business by resolution. Bylaws, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Twaddle, that bylaw numbers 2014-054, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, and 64 be passed and enacted.
Thank you. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried, and we're now adjourned. Thank you.